At 2:17, my house becomes aware that I'm awake. I didn't understand that at first. I thought I was imagining things. I wanted it to be anything else. Pipes, temperature, old wood. But the longer I stayed awake, the clearer it became. This wasn't the house making noise. Something inside it was moving. I've lived in this house for almost 7 years. From the outside, there's nothing unusual about it. 2 stories, narrow front porch, a roof that creaks during winter and swells in summer. The kind of place people pass without looking twice. The neighborhood is quiet, too quiet at night. No traffic sounds, no late conversations drifting through open windows. After midnight, the world here goes still, like everything is holding its breath. That's part of why the sounds stood out. At night, houses make noise. Anyone who's lived in one knows that. Wood contracts, walls shift. You learn those sounds. You recognize them the way you recognize your own footsteps. But there was one sound I couldn't place. It wasn't loud. It didn't announce itself. It arrived carefully, as if it understood that drawing attention would be a mistake. At first, I only noticed it because of the time. I'd wake up suddenly every night and glance at my phone. 2:17 a.m. Always the same. I wasn't waking up because of the sound. I was waking up before it happened. And that bothered me more than anything else, because it felt like anticipation. The house is older than it looks, built in the late 1950s according to the paperwork. No dramatic history, no records of violence or accidents, just a sequence of owners who stayed a few years and left. I didn't think much about that when I moved in. During the day, the house feels normal. Sunlight fills the rooms, the floors are warm, nothing feels out of place. But at night, especially after 2 a.m., the air changes. It thickens. Sounds don't travel the way they should. A noise from downstairs feels closer than it is. The distance between rooms collapses. Hallways feel longer. The first time I heard it clearly, I was standing in the kitchen. I had woken up early for work and couldn't fall back asleep. I went downstairs to get water, trying to move quietly, not wanting to wake the house. That's when I heard it. A single step. Not above me, not beside me. Behind the wall. It was deliberate, heavy enough to suggest weight, slow enough to suggest control. I stood there, holding my breath, listening. Nothing followed. I told myself it was the house settling, but houses don't wait. Once you notice a pattern, it's impossible to ignore it. I started staying awake on purpose. I would sit in bed with the lights off, phone face down, listening, not moving, waiting for the moment when the clock shifted. 2:16. Silence. 2:17. The sound always came from a different part of the house, sometimes above me, sometimes below, once directly outside my bedroom door. Never rushing, never repeating, just one movement, one sound, as if to say, I'm here. I tried to record it. I set my phone to capture audio overnight. Every morning I listened through hours of silence. The recording skipped from 2:16 to 2:18 every night. No corruption, no error message, just missing time. I checked carbon monoxide levels. I replaced detectors. I had an electrician inspect the wiring. I installed a camera facing the hallway. At 2:17, the footage froze. The timestamp stayed visible, the image didn't move, but the audio continued. That's how I heard it clearly for the first time. Breathing. Slow, controlled, close to the microphone. I didn't sleep the next night, or the one after that. During the day, I felt watched. Not followed, not threatened. Observed, like something was waiting for the day to end. I began noticing small changes. A door that I knew I had closed opened by a few inches. Objects shifted just enough that I questioned myself. Memory is easy to doubt. That's how this thing survived for as long as it did. I stopped using mirrors at night, not because I saw anything in them, but because of the feeling that something was avoiding them. Every time I passed one after 2 a.m., the air felt wrong, like pressure building behind glass. I never saw it, but I knew where it wasn't. I needed proof that it wasn't just me. I invited someone to stay the night. I didn't tell them what to expect. I didn't want to influence anything. We stayed up late, talking, watching something mindless on TV. At 2:16, the room felt smaller. The air shifted. At 2:17, the sound came from the ceiling, a slow drag. My guest sat upright instantly. They asked me what that was. I didn't answer. Another sound followed, closer this time, inside the walls. My guest started crying, quietly, the kind of crying people do when they don't want to be heard. They refused to stay in the house after sunrise. They wouldn't describe what they saw when they closed their eyes. They only said this: "It knew you were pretending not to hear it." After that night, the sounds became more confident, more frequent. Sometimes it spoke, not in words, in familiar sounds. The sound of my footsteps, the sound of my voice clearing its throat, the sound of a door opening the way I open it. I began to realize something important. It wasn't copying me, it was reminding me. I started researching the house. Old permits, renovation records, ownership transfers. One detail kept appearing: a sealed interior space, listed, then removed, documented, then erased. I found it behind a wall in the basement, a narrow door hidden beneath layers of paint. Inside was a room that didn't align with the rest of the house. No windows, no fixtures, just marks on the floor, scratches, and the overwhelming sense that I wasn't alone in there. At 2:17 that night, I stood in the doorway. The room breathed. The walls shifted, just slightly, like something inside them was adjusting its position. I spoke for the first time. "I know you're here." The response came from behind me. "I know you are too." It was my voice, but it wasn't speaking to me. It was speaking for the house. The sounds changed after that. They softened. The presence stayed close. I began to understand the schedule wasn't random. 2:17 wasn't when it arrived, it was when it was allowed to move. The house wasn't haunted, it was occupied, and it had rules. I learned them by listening. Never enter the sealed room after 2:17. Never acknowledge it by name. Never sleep facing the hallway. In return, it stayed contained, watching, waiting, protecting the structure that held it. And me. I moved out for a while, but 2:17 followed me. The sound came from hotel walls, from unfamiliar ceilings, from spaces that couldn't possibly hold anything. Until I returned. The house was quiet again. At 2:17, nothing happened. For the first time, I understood what that meant. Whatever lived there had been waiting. If you're drawn to stories like this, if quiet fear lingers with you longer than loud horror, you can subscribe to the channel. There are more houses like this, and some of them are listening.